All right, big button is live. Hi, thank you everybody for joining us today. Hi, my name
Derek,
is
somehow you're
Derek.
on mute.
Am I? What?
No, you're not. It's not on mute.
I'm not on
Derek's not
mute?
on mute?
You're,
Okay, I can't
Derek's
hear
definitely
him.
not on mute.
Testing?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool.
I hear you.
All right, cool. Awesome. So, sorry again. Hi, name is Derek Taylor David. I'm one of the leaders of the Phoenix, Arizona Atlassian user group, also with the Seattle, Washington group. For anybody joining up in my neck of the woods near Yakima, thanks for everybody being here today. We really do appreciate it. We have a great panel of speakers today. Rodney West, Robert Wen, Josh Costella, and Summer Hogan. They're going to go over Unlock Atlassian expert answers to your toughest questions. Sorry, I have to make sure I read that here correctly. One of the biggest benefits that Atlassian has over all of the other platforms is really the sense of community that we have. We tend to be very welcoming when it comes to new users who have issues, who are basic in the places that we were all in several years ago, trying to say, how do I get started? What do I do? I have a weird problem. And rather than going online and trying to search through articles put out by the vendor or going to different meetings and such, our community is really our biggest source of strength in that there is always somebody, either an individual contributor, a company, or even just groups like this that will get together and just regularly meet to talk about, hey, how do I do this better? And I think Atlassian does that better than just about any other platform that I've actually seen or been a part of. So that's going to be part of today. It's going to be a really open session. We're going to have you have any questions you have, make sure you go through and put them in chat. Summer over there will be monitoring along with I. We're going to let everybody here on the board go through and do a quick intro, then we'll go get started. But the both of us will be go through and monitor all those different questions. We'll do some follow-up at the end just to make sure that if you do have anything that was not answered during the meeting, find a place to go through and submit it either in the survey or via email address. We'll give you it out at the very end. But with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and ask we go do a round table, and I'm going to popcorn over to Rodney.
Hi, so my name is Rodney West, Technical Solutions Architect at ISOS Technology. Been doing stuff on the Atlassian stack since like end of 2017. With ISOS for significantly longer than that. Yeah, so that's it. Used to work with Bob. He used to be here too. And that's how I'll pass it over to Bob.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Wen. I've been in the Atlassian ecosphere since about 2017, so almost 10 years now. I've worked in the consulting space, first with ISOS and then with Release Team. Now I'm with C Prime. So really happy to be here and kind of having lunch with you guys. Off to you, Josh.
Hey everybody, I'm Josh Costella. I am a principal architect and team lead for the system of work practice in the US at Centify. I've been in the Atlassian realm now for over 14 years. And yeah, happy to be here and try to answer some of your questions today. Summer.
Hey everyone, I'm Summer Hogan. I currently work at USAA. I'm a contractor through Tech Systems. I have been in the Atlassian ecosystem for many, many years, probably over 10, 12 years now. And I have been a Atlassian champion for a little over 3 years now. So welcome to all of you. Thank you all for joining our event.
And thanks for that. So Summer and I will be going through and looking through the chat. I'm going to answer the first one. Robert Heen, what is a hypotenuse? That is the longest side of a right angled triangle, and it can be found by finding the root of a squared plus b squared. Now that my expertise is out of the way, Summer, do you have a good candidate to go second?
Yes. So Al asked, how can I set up a view of Jira work items to display on a SharePoint server dashboard? I know there is a plugin and it works great, assuming everyone in the company has Jira, but that is not the case. And Wendy wanted to add to that previous question about grooming ideas, use a transition screen for them. I think that was her question, actually, so I'll come back to that. Anyone have an answer for Al's question?
don't think you're going to be able to get around the Jira licensing piece, right? Because basically, you would, if you were to integrate, you would have to. You can push over to SharePoint API endpoints via automation, but outside of that, right? If it's going to have to go back to Jira for base authentication, whenever you view the dashboard in SharePoint, it's going to require the license. Right? So I don't believe there's a way around that. But I'll let Bob or Josh.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
I know you could get like data into Power BI. And then maybe that could be
I think
displayed.
I also think it's going to require some type of licensing. As far as if you're talking about like straight Jira and the work items, it's going to require some licensing.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, cool. I like that you would turn me on the audio. It helps with context, right?
Yeah.
So just to give you some little more context here, the plugin, the third-party plugin, one of the Jira plugins worked great. And it's basically epics, which are our projects, and I got red, yellow, green status on them. It's awesome. And as soon as I got it out there, they said, well, you need a Jira license to look at it. I wait, it's static data. This is just static data. There's nothing, I don't want them to go and drill into Jira and just look at it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm dumping it from Jira with a filter report, queried it out, dump CSV with the red, yellow, green, imported into an Excel that gets basically dynamically, maintained on the SharePoint server, on the SharePoint site. It works great, but it's a lot of manual effort. I do a little VBA on the Excel, to make it a little faster and stuff for the cleanup. But it just blows my mind, literally, that they wouldn't allow you to dump static data in an easy way. I mean, it's all I want is static data. And I can't believe they would require a license for static data.
I mean, you can dump if you dumped it out via automation, right? You see the automation user is the only one that has to be licensed to do it. But yeah, it's because of the way effectively, the Atlassian licensing model. Same thing with generally the way third-party apps function, right? I guess the guiding philosophy there is everybody that uses Jira is benefiting from the presence of a third-party app. And so it's effectively the same thing here, right? Where with them not exposing that data in a different way, right? So there are, you can, to the point, you can hook up BI tooling that sends it out. So whoever the BI user is would need a Jira. The user the tool runs as would need a license. But then people consuming it on the other side, if you're pushing it over to Tableau or Power BI, would not require the license.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah,
it's still
weird.
ETL. Yeah, there's still an ETL process there, and
Yeah.
export, import out. That's I'm trying to avoid. God, the filter works so cool too. It's so great. It's just so all right, cool. I just wanted to see if there's something I was missing.
Yeah, and I think part of there's a secondary part to that they're trying to do is the permissioning model inside of Jira. They've got it built and a lot of the nuance in it, right, to keep people from seeing things they shouldn't be able to see in the tooling, whether it's through the regular permission schemes that you've got set up, or whether it's with issue security that you've got running, or I guess work item security now. But part of it too with having tools that just would able to hook directly in, be able to expose that data, it also poses a vulnerability of circumventing the permissions that you may have set up on
if it's dynamic, and if you can tunnel in, it's basically an output of static data, in my humble opinion. But
even
logically,
even on the Jira side though, you can't do queries and get access, even if you're not drilling.
Yeah, you got to be in the tool. You got to be in the ecosystem to build.
Yeah, and then that's.
I get you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I appreciate you giving me some thinking through. You said this is going to be tough questions, so
Yeah.
I figured I'd throw some. All right, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, our next question comes from Wendy. We would like. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
Just really quick. So Sydney requested presenter permissions. Before we switch, Sydney, did you have something that you wanted to add to that particular topic?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to briefly mention that I'm doing something similar in Box, and I just use a plugin, Jira for Excel, that you can save a filter into that, and then you can set that Excel sheet to either refresh based on that whenever you open it or whenever you just click a button. So it's still manual, but it's less manual.
Oh, it's within Excel. It's like an API.
Yeah, I think it's just like a third-party app that's just like Jira for Excel.
Oh.
And it becomes like its own little sidebar. You can set it up with a JQL or one of your favorited filters.
Could you send me something, or how do I get Sydney to send me something?
It looks like there's already that in the chat. So if you could post the name of that in the chat, we would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks, Sydney.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bob, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear everybody now. So
okay, cool. Okay, awesome. Okay, so Wendy would like some ideas on how to capture grooming items in a ticket, like fields or a checklist, or maybe use a transition screen for them.
So, and this depends on exactly what she means by grooming items, but usually checklists are actually at least from what I think of, are a good way to actually capture those kinds of things. You can still do stuff inside of like more of a paragraph field where you do stuff with some tables and stuff inside of there as a different approach. But really, you're going to want something that has more of a dynamic feel to it. You know, the other heavier approach, if you want to start going subtask route, the checklists are actually a good approach. Bob?
It almost sounds like if you're talking about grooming or refinement, it almost sounds like you want to make sure that your definition of ready is all set. And so, you know, I'm kind of a cheapskate. I start off as a cheapskate first, and I immediately went to a checklist. And now in Jira, on a long paragraph text field like description, you can create your own checklists. You just go in there, do the bracket, and it will automatically generate in Jira Cloud a checklist item. So you can start out with that.
Yeah. And then if you want to go kind of I'll put this in the chat, but one of the third-party apps that kind of makes this a little, you know, it ends up being kind of a next step to, you know, to Bob's point there is it's table grid next generation. I guess that's what they're calling it now. It's from Excelate, but that provides a good add-on for some richer controls depending on the kind of information you're trying to capture there.
And I'm sure that the plus of an add-on is you can save it as a template, and then anytime you have a set checklist for your definition of ready, you just pop it in there, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Andrea is asking, where in Jira training can I find how to build a report for Confluence Jira assets? Not just schema, but all assets by a schema for a basic inventory. I currently export to Excel. I was told to use the front / function, but looking for a how-to.
So the thing about assets is now that it's a platform app, I don't know if have you tested anything out as, you know, in terms of reporting in Confluence now that assets is platform? Just kind of throwing it out there to Rodney or Josh. Or
I did it when it first came out, because I think there's a macro, I believe, that you can pull against assets, but the reporting against assets is still
still a little bit to be deterred.
Trying to figure out the word I want to use here, but it's not it's not the best. There really isn't, at least that I've come across, a good how-to on how to do that level of reporting. To Bob's point, though, is looking at I think there's an assets macro for Confluence that you can use to get some information. I don't think it'll give you the information you're looking for, though. Build a report for Confluence Jira assets, not just schema, but all assets by schema. Yeah, I don't think there's a good way to do that at the moment. It would have to be something where if you wanted something good, it's effectively you're going to need to do like kind of some custom export stuff, which ends up being heavy overhead. I don't think Rovo will do a dump for you of that information. Although I guess you may be able to use Atlassian analytics for that. I haven't actually tested that out, but it sounds like it may be something you can use.
And Robert Heen just posted something in the chat. Just checked. I have an assets macro that uses AQL Cloud Premium.
And that'll dump it out like into a table to get the info.
Yeah. Usually when I've seen assets and reporting and things like that, one thing that kind of pops up in my mind is something like EasyBI as a plugin. It plugs into assets and gets out all of that information. So especially if you're looking for something really, really sophisticated, aka kind of hard to set up sometimes, but if you're an EasyBI guru, I know it talks assets as well.
But yeah, I think the starting point is back to that. Try the Confluence macro first. See if that gives you what you need. It is AQL based, so you're gonna have to structure those calls specifically. It isn't just a dump the schema and go kind of thing. And then if you have analytics, then maybe check down that route. Or if you have somebody who's really good at EasyBI, have them try to go down that route as well.
And this also gives us a good point because Sydney said, hey, I don't know if there's a way to send screenshots. I don't think that there is a way in Bevy right now. Sorry, my tongue is faster than my brain sometimes. However, if there is anybody who wants to send additional feedback or has any additional questions like this, we're going to do our first plug that says, hey, if you do want to get a hold of everybody here that you're seeing on screen right now, we have an email address with Atlassian. It is phoenix_az@atlassiancommunity.com. And Sydney, if you want to send those screenshots over to there, get it sent to the rest of the team. And then again, if we are unable to solve that particular question, we have contacts with a lot of different vendors who may have that ability as well. And we can at least try and point you their way. Thanks.
Yeah. Also in there, and this is a slight plug for the ACE group. I would say, Derek, we should use that email address one more time for anybody that is in the Phoenix area that would like to meet face to face, like Scott over there in Mesa, either Mesa or Scott's East Valley. East Valley folks. Send an email saying I'm interested in meeting face to face. The problem is we get anonymized email addresses on all of these things. So if there is interest in that, we can't exactly get it from the a.atlassian.com machinations. So that's why I'm saying, the email address that Derek put out, send a quick blurb. Hey, we'd like to meet face to face for a beverage or more.
We also have in-person community events quite a few times a year. So we're still planning to do that this year too. And we really have 2 locations that we mostly do them at, one in Scottsdale and one in Tempe. So anyone who's interested, we usually post those out on LinkedIn, on the Phoenix Atlassian Community group, as well as other marketing that we usually do for those.
And also, as a plug for that, if there is anybody here in the community that is interested in actually having one of these hosted at your place, if you are able to accommodate a fair number of people coming in on just some random weekday night where we can come in, do this talk, do different talks, whatever it is, and then have some food hosts at the same time, we would love to hear from you, because we're always looking at expanding the availability of places that we can go to versus just the 2 that we've kind of been working with right now. We would love to talk to you about that.
Definitely. Okay, next question. So Scott has a question. Is there a way to get Confluence action items to send reminders or roll up into Outlook or something similar without a lot of automation or custom work?
I immediately went to automation. I'm sorry.
There's even there's a recipe that is in Confluence automation that will do like a Rovo generated summary into an email that has the action items in it when a page is published with the action items. So, I think there's definitely ways to do it. It's just going to take a little bit of custom automation.
Okay, anything else on that one? All right, so Andrea asks, can Rovo be used to generate asset reporting dashboards to Confluence? Also, can it be used to create JSM dashboards where for learning can I go to learn about this?
So one of the things I'm gonna go to the JSM part of that real quick first. I'm assuming whenever you're talking about JSM dashboards, you're talking about using the native dashboards inside of Jira. If that's what you're talking about, the gotcha there is I think there are actually only 2 dedicated gadgets that specifically call out JSM. I believe though I saw they've added some functionality to the regular gadgets that do kind of the light actually expose some of their JSM data. And when I say that, right, you can, like, there's specifically in JSM, like your SLAs or your queues that you weren't able to expose on the front end. One of the ways that though you can use those, one of those gadgets is the one where you actually plug into the reports that are on specific JSM projects. What I would say you do is you basically tell Rovo, I need a report inside of JSM that does this. You create it as the report inside of the JSM project, and you expose the dashboard on the front, right? Rovo isn't going to be able to build out the entire dashboard for you. And this is on the specific JSM side. I'm not going over the asset part of that, because right, I think that goes back towards the question we talked about a moment ago, right, where there's a macro inside of Confluence that is specifically for assets. But that's I don't know if Rovo's going to actually. I mean, it may actually have stuff now where it does do that introspection. I haven't actually tried that out. Bob or Josh, any thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't tried to use Rovo in terms of building like dashboards yet, so I don't know the full capability of what it can do for that. I mean, it's a good use case to test for sure.
I mean, it's something I might try after this meeting's over. And
yeah, you would think eventually there's going to be a build me a dashboard agent, and you just put in this type of data that you want to collect, and then yeah.
As far as where can I learn about this, so there is, and I'm trying to remember what it is. There is in the Atlassian learning space.
Yeah,
there's actually a full Rovo course there. It touches on a bunch of different areas, and so
I put a link to the one that the one that I know of. It's pretty in depth. It's free. Like there's no cost associated. So there's a lot of good content in there.
Yeah, that's a good learning source. If you want to get started on Rovo, the link that Josh sent.
And there's a lot like I would also just do a good like YouTube search, or even on like LinkedIn and stuff too, because there's a lot of people that are putting out a lot of Rovo content as time goes on. So there's a lot of great training even outside of the Atlassian official stuff that's been going up too.
Awesome. We have another question about Rovo, if you guys can answer it. It's from Avi. I have a question from Mia first. Workflow question regarding done status. Should there be a different done status based on work type if done is the last status for some work types versus not the last status for Scrum projects? And then she gives an example, like for a subtask, it's to do, in progress, done. A story is to do all the way through done, accepted, release.
I'm sure this is one a lot of people have strong feelings about. I see you smiling, Josh. I think you may have some feelings. I'll let you talk for it. Yeah, this is one of those loaded ones where
yeah,
totally.
People get very dogmatic on this. I know where
they do. I mean, my God, this could take up the rest of the time, but we won't let it do that. I have, the longer I've been in doing this, I used to be very customization heavy in my early days doing this. I love the fact that we could just go nuts with, just about customizing every single thing that mattered, I guess, at the time. Since those days, and since I've spent half my career now helping other companies dig out of the hole that they're in after years and years of customization and no governance, my number one leading rule is simpler. The simpler, the better. The simpler workflow, the simpler everything. Use the same statuses across everything you possibly can. Don't get dug into different flavors of done or closed. I mean, like, just keep it simple. So if done, if that nomenclature makes the most sense for the type of work that you guys do, sometimes it's closed, sometimes it's done, but I would not get into like really much beyond that. Like maybe sometimes there might be something where it's like sometimes having like a canceled status makes more sense than just having it as a resolution. Things like that. But again, that's the resolution and the status go hand in hand. So it's kind of like, depending on the context you're using within the status, then the resolution should complement that in some way. But yeah, I would just ultimately just keep it simple if you can. Don't get buried under statuses, because that just creates a mess. And it's not as simple as just like, well, you have the status category, so it doesn't really matter what the statuses are called. No, it absolutely can still mess you up. So keep it simple.
Yeah, I'm 1,000% with Josh on this, right? So like one of the key things we do whenever in most engagements you run into where you first go into the instance is we go in and you look, you go, how many statuses do you have? How many of these are the same? Right? And it's use the resolutions for differentiation where you need to. But it's like, people will go, done won't do, done what, and it's like you don't need a different status for those. Those are different resolutions. But the other part you run into is, what's the real reason for having these different ones? So that different teams feel special is really what it comes down to in a lot of my experience, right? As well, our done means something different than theirs. But then okay, why don't y'all talk and see if that's really the case? Because one of the things that happens, right, is whenever you end up with this fragmentation of your statuses, is it makes it to where organizationally you have a harder time with teams talking to each other. It decreases your ability to report on the system without writing overly complex queries. And by the way, JQL queries do have a limit on characters. So if you get way too crazy, you're going to run into that case, right? So it makes it to where you're not able to scale and communicate properly as an organization. really what you should be doing is going the other direction, implementing good governance and driving towards what our organizational standards are instead of going, we need differentiation for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm definitely with Rodney and Josh on this. And it also looks like, as far as the workflow is concerned, if you have done before it's accepted or released, that almost suggests that what you're trying to do is set up so that your velocity, what you consider done and
Dev done.
counted, isn't. I mean, it's right before it's accepted by the PO or even in your CI/CD pipeline and officially released. So, that's where it's a little bit interesting, because if you're counting on Jira to do the calculations of velocity and making sure that your burn down and burn up charts are correct, it's almost like you have to map done, accept, and released in the last column of your board. Otherwise, your metrics are just going to be wonky. So that's the way I'm kind of reading it, based upon what I see in the workflow.
Yeah, Sydney adds, I feel like apples to apples is a good rule as well. If there's going to be a cross-project report looking at what percentage of items are in the done status, you want to make sure that done means what those report readers expect to mean consistently. Yeah. If it were me, I'd be campaigning to move done to the end of the process and invent, if necessary, another status to fit that middle stage. So there's definitely different takes on this question.
And then also, as an admin, you go through and you add in, you have your status of done, but then you know that there's those cross-project reports that are looking at, hey, what is our current velocity? How are we working with things? What is actually done? Sometimes what you had to do as an admin is to go back to update everybody else's dashboards to say, hey, now we've added in this thing that's also done, but not quite the same done that we've been using. And you have to keep all of those in track. And then that's just for the reports that you know about. If somebody's gone through and done a private report and they have what they believe is all done, they're reporting on different metrics than what is actually be considered as done by the rest of the organization. Because if you have so many different versions of what is actually done, nobody really has that good picture and clear picture to say, what did we actually do? So it makes it so much easier. Our definition is done. This is what it means org-wide, and this is how we define it.
So Sydney, I gave you a presenter mode. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I have like another thought on how that situation could be handled, and I want to know if it's insane because I haven't tried it yet. Because it seems to me, looking at that status, at that workflow, like there's one section of the team that's like, if it's moved to done, that means my work is done. The acceptance and the release, that's a different team is concerned with that. And I want it to be reported that I completed my velocity. It almost sounds like you want to split that into like two cards.
It's two different work items, right? Effectively there.
Yeah, where like one moving to done activates the next one for the next team, so they can both keep track of how many things have they completed.
So, yeah, no, that is, seeing that is definitely an indicator that, that this work should be being handed off. So it's a separate work item.
It also kind of seems to me that this might be determined at a team by team basis, possibly. Maybe we need to take up some Mark Kruth teamwork, do some working agreements. Just saying.
Do a replay of that now since he left.
That's why I was saying that. That's a bid to Mark Kruth. Okay, moving on from the done conversation, Avi has a question about Rovo agents. Knowing that there are humans in the middle checkpoints and not wanting to forgo those, is there a way to single shot create a hierarchy of work items agently? For example, Upload a document that defines a strategic project, child epics, and nested child stories, and have those formatted and created in a predefined or user identified space.
Okay, this is kind of funny because one of the things that I do besides the Phoenix Ace is I am the producer of a podcast called the Jira Life, and we actually live stream our episodes on Thursdays, 2 p.m. Pacific to 5 p.m. Eastern. So if you're in Arizona right now, this time of year, that would mean 3 p.m. In March, that will turn into 2 p.m. But the reason I bring that up is on a recent Jira Life episode, we were actually talking about this, about creating work item hierarchies in through Rovo, and we actually, and I think this was about 3 weeks back. Rovo doesn't generate work item hierarchies. It just can't do it. It can't do like parent-child hierarchies just yet. I mean, you can ask it to create work items. It'll do that fine, but it does not create the create epic, story, subtask type hierarchies.
Anything else on that? Sounds like a good resource.
Yeah, one of the things I'm looking at though, the question here on doing that in Rovo, I mean, could you just do it in a CSV import, right? Because you can do the, I think you can do the parent links inside of that, right? And that's, we're saying upload a doc, right? It may just be that. That's the case here.
Okay, so Mia has a question on thoughts on Confluence versus Microsoft 365 to improve sharing, collaboration, knowledge. Any additional considerations? I would use Confluence. That's my only consideration.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, we're going to have a bias towards Confluence here, right? And the other tooling that's built into it, right? Because here's where it ends up being good as well, right? Is if you're using Confluence on its own, okay, maybe that's not the solution you want. But if you are using if you're using the other Atlassian tools, which you're here, so hopefully you are, it makes it easier, right? That cross-linking over with Jira, the ability to actually introspect easier with Rovo inside across both tools, the integrated search functions that go across all of your Atlassian items, make it to where I think that aids in the collaboration. Once people are used to kind of that flow between Jira and Confluence, that ends up being the good case. The other thing too, right, is the ability to actually expose Jira issue information inside of Confluence in those kind of executive dashboards and reporting things, right? And when I say dashboards, I'm not talking, you've got the Jira specific dashboards, but there are kind of the report formats that are easier for some people to consume inside of Jira. There's the ability also, inside of Confluence, it's also the ability where you can use the Confluence databases as kind of those mixed use where you have some data information and you have information being pulled over from specific Jira tickets. We care about these specific columns in conjunction with these other sets of values. Then you can take those entries and have those be the fronters for specific pages inside of Confluence, right? So you have your database in one place, but then you're using all those entries somewhere else. So it's learning, that integration of those relationships and how they function together that really is where I would push me more towards going the Confluence route on this. Additionally, there's things I believe you can expose in the Atlassian Teams area through Confluence directly. I haven't tested it, but I'm not sure how it actually hooks into goals. But
I think that's
connection. So
kind of more what she was thinking. She did put a clarification in the chat, meant having a connector between the two applications.
oh, okay. Yeah, it's the connector between. Oh, using a connector between Confluence and Microsoft 365.
Yeah, I think that's what she's getting at.
Okay. I mean, I still think it's not going to be as smooth. If you're pulling information into Confluence from Microsoft 365, yes, but as far as information being shared the other direction, it might not be as clean. And I'm not. I haven't used the connector.
I'm in favor of that if what you have is if you have a lot of file-based legacy documentation, old Word docs, old PowerPoint presentations, and you want to help keep that together with the newer documentation that you set up as either live docs or pages in Confluence, having that kind of connector is useful. So, because not everybody can kind of backfill legacy documentation.
Okay, and then Mia had another question. Thoughts on the newly announced field configuration scheme changes recently announced taking effect May 2026?
Yeah, you want to, you're so just to provide some backdrop on that. So field configurations and field configuration schemes are going away per se. They're really kind of encapsulating that as a per space type of thing in field schemes, which also means that one of the things that you should do if you are a Jira admin, you should be checking out the whether or not your custom fields there's limits that they're putting on custom fields on a per space basis. I think it's like 700. So you need to make sure that you're at that limit or well below, hopefully. And you should also watch out for field contexts because I think they're trying to get rid of individual field context when they go into this new thing into the field schemes.
And so, this is kind of an interesting the question here is we actually one of the teams I'm on for one of our clients, we actually just went through a cleanup exercise earlier this week. When I say earlier this week, I mean 2 days ago for them, right? We'd been planning it out. Note the Jira optimizer is your friend, by the way, on this.
Yep.
Whenever you do the cleanup, another thing to keep in mind, it is non-destructive from the standpoint you don't lose data that's already there. That's that has been one of the considerations, right? Is hey, okay, we're doing this. Are we losing anything? Well, the fields just are not available for those spaces whenever you move the field configuration scheme for the spaces. But this gives you a good chance to do some cleanup and see are things really being used, right? You have years of cruft. Let's go ahead and start removing things out of the system. And I think longer term this should lead to people designing systems in a tighter fashion, because it brings it back to one of the things that I think a lot of people have gotten away from in the cloud, that on-prem are always aware of. Wait, do we have over 1,000 custom fields in our system, right? Because whenever you start to see the system degradation, right, that was always the biggest impactor on-prem was custom fields. Then you had things happen like the number of transitions in your workflows and things that start to be be heavy impact. There's a number of issues in the system. But the very first thing you'd always look at on-prem if you're having performance problems was, what is our custom field count? We need to lower, and 1,000 was one of those thresholds where you really started to get worried. In cloud, it's kind of like whenever you went from doing, when we used to have to write C code and you had to worry about releasing your memory. And then all of a sudden, everybody starts doing more things in Java and stuff. I feel like an old man right now saying this, but then you start to go, wait, what if let the garbage collector take care of it for us? We don't care about this, right? And there's more system memory. It doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does matter from the standpoint of the cloud environment is a shared environment in this case. So there's the performance perspective from that side. There's the compute cost. Then there's the things where you're pulling things over to analytics. So you need to be able to analyze data better, right? So you don't want those larger sets. And we've had these things where you have too many fields in a project that aren't being used, in a space, not a project, in a space that are no longer being used. And so, this is a good opportunity for you, to do some cleanup. So I'm in favor from that perspective because I think it'll start to make people be tighter on what they're actually building out, as long as they follow good governance models. The only downside I see with that is that idea that this is kind of a shift towards having those field configuration contexts be more space centric. So each space kind of has its own. What have we pushed for so long on the governance side? Share as much as you can. Well, now we've got these field configuration schemes that we can't share across as many projects. But on the opposite side of it is, well, maybe those field configuration schemes were designed wrong to begin with anyway. But that's the only thing that rubs me a little wrong with it is it's driving people a little bit down that path of space by space specific configurations, which as a Jira administrator you hate, right? Because that's more for you to maintain. And I'm gonna get off my soapbox now on that, but that's basically what I feel about configuration. Especially, like I said, went through the exercise and did, went through earlier this week on successful decrease for a client that had quite a few spaces that were actually going to be hit by this, that were over the 700, over the 900.
And I'm going to take over here just really quick because we've got about 10 minutes left into the meeting right now. So we're going to go into lightning round. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can. Some of you are going to post the question. I'm going to go and start a timer. We're going to have a minute each from whoever would like to respond. We're going to limit to 2 people doing the responses. And then we're going to move on to the next question and see if we can get as many answered as possible. So Summer, if you want to go ahead, I'll get the timer started and let's go.
Okay, I'm going to talk fast. It's a long question. Stephen asks, started using Notion for some of my documentation because a handful of available visual elements. Then noticed that Confluence started including many of these items like page header, page icon, element grab handles, a bunch of others. Right now, 2 box and a set of content in Confluence. I'm using a single column 2-row table. Is Confluence actively chasing feature parity with Notion? I'd really like to see the call out design element. I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak to what their product management mentality is right now, but I mean, they're definitely trying to make Confluence more visually palatable and more flexible.
I'd have to agree. We're in the high tech industry, right? We're not past stealing, ideas that don't come from, our company. Although I'm kind of interested as to what call out design element really, points to, but we're in the lightning round. So.
Okay, next question. Scott asks, how do you manage post-release tasks, things that need to be completed, such as sending emails to users, various backups, etc.? If these tickets are in the release, then all tickets are not closed before release. Don't want to bloat Jira with extra releases, etc. Thoughts?
I'm wondering if that is if those are tasks, if they're post-release tasks, if those really fall more into an operations bucket, and if so, those are something that you don't necessarily are doing as possibly as a one and done. It may be on a recurring basis.
I also like having those as items that go into the next release. So we've done the release. We have a bunch of subtasks that maybe you can use a subtask cloner with something in the marketplace that does something like that. But just checking those off as a part of like, hey, similar to how you would do hypercare after a release, we've done all of these things. We check them off and they're just included in the next release.
Yeah, also there is a suggestion in the chat Confluence page with tasks. So that's another option that you could do. And like Derek said, make that as part of like the next release or even the next sprint after your release. Next one, this is from Scott. Our development team fully embraces the Atlassian stack. Our engineering team pushes back hard because there isn't a way to get to content when offline, like on a plane without Wi-Fi or in a building without cell service. OneNote solves this problem. Aside from publishing, exporting Confluence content, and that removes the navigation helps. Are there any ways around this issue or any new features coming that you're aware of?
I get the intent, but to me, that also raises a security concern, especially because you have company documents that are available offline and somebody's walked out the door with them. So yeah, I'm going to give Scott.
Okay, I think Scott wants to say something. I gave him the presenter mode. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The problem is that we'll put the documents either on a OneDrive share that's replicated down to the local PCs, or we'll put them on in OneNote, which replicates in the background when you connect. It's the type of thing where we've got product documentation, internal docs, internal helps that our engineers need in the field. And if somebody walks away with it, they're going to walk away with it. You know, we need to get it out there. We're not putting the secrets out there, but we're putting the know-how so that they can get their job done out there.
Well, I think part of it too, right? It's not so much you keeping the knowledge from being out there, but it is putting a little bit of a speed bump on somebody walking away with the information. Inside of Confluence, one of the permissions you're always advised to turn off inside of Spaces is is it called export? It's the one that lets you like export an entire space in one shot. And the reason behind that, oddly, it wasn't like when I talk to people about that, they're like, oh, it's because of system performance. Nope, it's got nothing to do with system performance. If you actually, years and years ago, if you read through like some of the documentation, it was always a security thing so that somebody can't just print and bulk export all the spaces. So if you want to export stuff, you have to go page by page. So it's not that you're making it to where the people who need the information can't get to it. It's that you're making it to where I get the information I need when I need it, but it's harder for me to just grab the folder and bolt out the door. So it ends up being kind of a more that's the reason that you would turn that off. So I think this sounds like it's kind of a similar thing, right?
I understand the intent. The problem is we now have we have about 10 people on the dev side and about 40 people on the engineering side. So we now have things strewn across an old network drive, a lot of content in OneNote, and stuff in Jira and Confluence. And the question is, where can you find it?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of duplicate things, and we have people literally doing the same thing. With some stuff comes out almost word for word, but they didn't know about it.
It's that old. It's in the wiki.
Yeah, and we would gladly throw away some of the internal security to be able to have one.
So
and there's a huge push from the engineering team to just dump Confluence and put everything in OneNote.
So one of the things to look at as a side thing there is, Rovo can pull information from different sources. And so is it, are these sources that you could actually connect Rovo to, the non-Confluence?
We've-
right? So,
We've tried and it can't get in yet.
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I see this thing about Confluence page with tasks and things like this, but or with single source of truth. It'd be great, but if you're offline, if you can't get to Jira, you're stuck.
Yeah.
This
All right,
will
thank you.
be for us to take offline just so we can keep going with.
Yeah, no, please keep going.
So Derek,
Please email us. Yeah.
yeah, Derek, there's only one more question that I can see. So the last question I have is actually from Tim. So he says he's already part of the Phoenix community group on the community, but now he wants to know, how does he get a notification day one when we announce any event?
So those ones are still triggered automatically. So as soon as we do have an event and it is published, it will automatically email everybody in the community unless you've already hit unsubscribe. So you should be getting those right away. And even for that one, I don't even think we have the ability to schedule that one to go out. It just goes. So as soon as you get the email, that's probably as soon as we published it.
Okay, so hopefully, Tim, that answers your question. Actually, do not see any other questions in the chat. So it looks like we did a pretty good job answering everyone's questions today.
Thank you all for being here. We'll go and do the outro here just right now. Thank you to everybody, Rodney, Bob, King Bob, Summer, and Josh. Thanks for answering all of these different questions today. We really do appreciate it, and especially your time, especially since for everybody in the community, this is a volunteer position that we use, and we just kind of do this on a regular basis just to make sure that we're keeping in with the community. So we do appreciate all of your time actually being here today. So for all of our attendees, thanks for spending your time with us today. Again, if you do have any other questions that were not answered, or you just weren't able to get it into the chat the way that you needed to, go ahead and email us again at phoenix_az@atlassiancommunity.com. That will go to everybody here in this group, and we'll be able to either, like I said, try to answer your question or to maybe forward it over to somebody who we think might have a good idea to that, and go through and get that sorted out for you. Thank you for your time. Yeah, go ahead.
Wendy, to answer your question, when's our next event? We currently do not have one scheduled right now, but we should have one scheduled here coming pretty soon. We were thinking of doing this type of event, like an Ask Me Anything type of event in person, doing an in-person event, doing this kind of same format. So yeah, you should get an email, and we will be advertising out our next event very shortly.
And with that, thank you all very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.